Well, welcome back to Nittany Game Week, Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Well, it's the home of the Swampers, of course, everyone knows that, and our Impact interview guest, Rece Davis. He stayed in state to go to college at Bama and is truly one of the most important voices in our game in college football. The host of ESPN's College GameDay. Rece, thanks so much for carving out what I know is a really busy week of preparation.
No, thank you guys for having me. We're really excited to bring the show back to Penn State. I'm really happy that it's a night game, so we can be there on Old Main. So it'll be a great morning on Saturday morning. We've even cooked up a little surprise for everybody there, so I'm hoping everybody will come out, be early, be loud, and get ready for that game against the Ducks Saturday night.
Well, anytime McAfee's involved, there's going to be a surprise or something that's coming on. But look, you're coming to Happy Valley this weekend. When the game day location is confirmed and you know that's where you're going, what are some of the images, what are some of the things that you think of right away when you know you're going to be, you mentioned Old Main, but that you're going to be coming to State College?
Well, the first thing is I try to be a man of not many vices, but one of them is sweets. So I will be going to the creamery, and I am a big fan of Peachy Paterno. I like, the fruit flavored ice cream. That's a delicious thing. I'll be doing that. But in terms of the show, I think the first thing I think of is 2017. And I've told this story, I might have told you guys before, but I always in the scene set, the open of the show, tried to capture the spirit and the essence, some of the things that are unique to the place where we are that maybe fans elsewhere might not be as familiar with. So with the chant, "We want the lion," and crowd surfing the lion to the top of Beaver Stadium, we had the idea of having the lion crowd surf back across our crowd. And then it came up that maybe we would have Lee Corso do it too. And so I was, it was, I guess, starting my third year on the show, and I asked Lee if he would do it, and he said, yeah, we'll do it. Well, as the day went on Friday, I started to get more and more nervous about it. Our security team started getting a little more nervous about it. They weren't sure if the crowd would put him down so that he would get back to the set in time for the open of the show after coming to your city. So right before the show started, we're probably 60 seconds to air. Our director at the time, Rodney Perez, got in my ear and said, "Hey, RD, security doesn't like this at all. They want to pull the plug. Tell coach to come back to the set." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So I said, "Open me up so Lee can hear me." And I told him, I said, "Hey, LC, security's worried you're not going to get back in time. We're going to scrap this. We'll just let the lion do it by himself." And LC goes, "Hell no, sweetheart, we're doing it. Let's go." And it was one of the great opens to the show, and it was so cool. And Lee loved doing stuff like that, and I thought the crowd enjoyed it. People at home loved it, and I think that's the first thing I think of whenever that, and the hospitality that we're always shown when we come to Penn State.
Well, you kind of segued right into my next question. I mean, as the quarterback of Game Day at a live television event, how hard is it to manage that in real time?
Jay, I got to tell you, I really think that the guys that I've got a great team around me. I know that sounds cliched, but everybody wants the good of the show. And so there's a lot of cooperation, and there's a lot of understanding. And I also appreciate that they all are very gracious about allowing me to challenge them. Now, look, I'm not going to challenge Nick Saban about, "Well, Nick, I don't know if a cornerback should really keep his feet underneath his shoulder. Sometimes a wide stance." I'm not going to challenge him on something like that. But if we want to talk about whether a team should have punted or gone for it, whether they should make a quarterback change, whether that schedule is, indicative of whether a team is good or not, all of those things are reasonable points of discussion. And they're all extraordinarily generous in terms of accepting that and not going, you were a crappy high school player. You haven't achieved anything. Yeah, let the football guys talk. They never approach it that way because they know it's better for the show to do it a different way. They may think it. They may think it, and they would probably be right to think it, but they don't say it. And I think because of that, it really makes it really easy.
Hey, Rece, the whiteout game is always bigger and better when both teams are really good. Penn State and Oregon, what are some of the things you'll be anxious to see on Saturday night?
I think just seeing both of them challenged for the first time. I mean, I think it's probably a little trite to say, well, neither of them played anybody. We don't know if they're good. Yes, we do. You can watch both of these teams play and know that they're both very good. I want to see how Drew Aller, some of his new receivers fare on this big stage. And one of the themes that you've seen in the early part of the season is when young quarterbacks make their first road start in really difficult environments. And Dante Moore's been around a little bit more than some of the other young guys who we've seen this year. But, kind of got baptized by fire at UCLA. I'm not sure that even then he had anything on the road that will approximate what he's about to face on Saturday night. And are they able to utilize their weapons against Penn State's defense, new coordinator and everything? I think just the poise that I'll be watching for Dante Moore to see whether they can execute against Penn State's defense. And then I think it's a really big opportunity for Drew Aller and the offense to come through on a big stage. As it turns out, not only the non-conference, but because of the random luck of the draw in their Big Ten schedule, there is no one save Ohio State on that schedule that you really look at and go, oh, well, Penn State will be lucky to get out of that one. Penn State's going to be favored in all of those games. Heck, they play well. They might be favored against Ohio State. Who knows? But I think it's really important for them to meet the moment, particularly when they haven't been challenged up to this point because of just the way the non-conference schedule fell this year.
Yeah, we're all fascinated to see how it plays out for sure. Look, you've had the opportunity to cover a lot of great events and meet some amazing people in the sports world. I want to take you back to 2011, a sit-down in State College with two of the greatest ever to do it in their respective sports, Mike Krzyzewski and Joe Paterno. How difficult was that assignment? And did you kind of just feel like, I just got to tee these guys up and then get out of the way?
It's funny if any of our guys are watching this. I mean, there is some truth to it, but I always I bristle, as I'm sure you do, when they say, hey, just tee those guys up, because I always tell them, I've got things I could be doing. There's yard work, there are things around the house. I could write the great American novel, something. If you just need someone to tee up guys, then get a trained SEAL in there. They can ask, what do you think about this? But in that particular case, I think you did want to get out of the way and let them tell stories, but you also want to facilitate and participate in the conversation, because then it becomes better. And that is one of the days that I will always cherish, because, while I didn't know Joe as well, I did have the privilege of being around him several times later in his career, and he was always extraordinarily gracious to me. His family's been great to me, and I obviously had the utmost respect for all of his accomplishments, and to have him there with Mike, who I also have a very good relationship with, was, really a cool thing, because when you have people who have achieved in an extraordinarily difficult profession at the level at which they had, and had the impact that they had on their sport and on people who played for them, to have them share ideas and to share time together is cool. And I was thrilled beyond belief, to be able to be a part of that and to try to facilitate that and make it meaningful. I actually just stumbled across some pictures from that day just a week or two ago, and was thinking about what a cool day it was. And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they knew each other, at least not very well, if they did. And I thought that made it even more special to be able to get those two together in that atmosphere. It was just a tremendous environment for something like that. And they told stories and shared philosophies and questioned each other. It was really, really a rewarding day for me.
Yeah, they did not know each other that well, but I mean, they came off and really, you did a phenomenal job. So let's talk about, put on your hat now as a guest lecturer for aspiring students. With given AI and ChatGPT and rapidly changing technology, how important is it, would you say, to new students that have an idea they want to do kind of things you're doing? How is it important for them to develop the writing skills if they're going to pursue a career in television?
It's huge. And I would never let AI or Chat GPT write for you. Everybody sometimes maybe you have a little writer's block or you can't quite, get your idea. And I'm not good at using it yet. I ask it questions like, who are all the defensive coordinators that changed in college football this year? So I can, I can get a list. I don't really know how to use it that well. But if, I'm not saying never touch it because there's something that will, keep you from reaching your potential. But I would never suggest that any student let it write for them because writing is expression of who you are. If you can write and command the language and express yourself, you're formidable. You have to be contended with. If you're just letting a computer do it, then people are contending with the computer. They're not contending with you. And so I think it's a useful tool, but that's what it should be. It should be a tool. It shouldn't be your crutch. And I hope that most are doing that. I have friends who teach at the college level, and they're finding a lot of papers that are written by AI, and they're getting better and better at weeding those out. They're probably using AI to weed those out, but I think it's not it's not. You're not benefiting yourself. You're cutting corners, and with the background that the two of you have, that in the long run, cutting the corner never pays. You won't reach your potential if you cut the corner. It doesn't mean you won't be successful. It doesn't mean, you're going to wind up, standing in a cheese line because you used AI to write your paper. I'm not saying that. But if you want to really challenge yourself to be the best you can be, use it as a tool, of course. Don't ignore technology and progress, but never let it do your work for you. I think that's really, really important. And I'm glad you brought it up.
Hey, Rece, I had 38 years of those interesting conversations you had with Coach Paterno. Some not so interesting, as you could imagine. But but hey, as you look at the changing landscape of football, college football and basketball, what is good about it and what concerns you as we keep going forward here?
The first thing that's good about it is that the players are making money. And the reason I say that is I think it makes it a more honest enterprise. It is, and that's what it is. It's a business, and it has been for a really long time. So there is something that is more honest about allowing the players to also make money, not create this, false sense of student athlete as if somehow those things are mutually exclusive and somehow it's sullied if you make money. That's sort of a preposterous notion if you really stop and think about it. So I think that's the good thing. But with every good thing, there come challenges. And I think the challenges are that I think it's harder sometimes for players and coaches to identify who's really in it for the love of the sport and who has been distracted. I think everybody that starts playing, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, these kids today, they don't love it the way they did in, 75. But I do think that because heck, I'm 59 years old, I get distracted by things. I wander. I mean, the Bible, the Apostle Paul talks about, I want to do one thing and I wind up doing the other, right? So there's no age limit on that. But I think young people are particularly susceptible to being distracted. And I think sometimes that even great athletes can go into situations and they get distracted by, well, this person's getting more than me, or this team tells me they're going to pay me more, or we lost a couple of games early and now I don't know, is this the best place for me? So I think that's the tough part of it, is maintaining the honesty and the appropriateness, in my judgment, of letting the players share in the revenue, make money, whatever that is. Let the market decide it. Collectively bargain someday if we can ever figure out who would bargain for the players and who would bargain for the other side. But, that would probably insulate them from court cases, in my judgment. You guys are smarter on this stuff than I am. But probably insulate, and I know Jay's brother probably have plenty to say about this, but it would probably insulate them from court cases better than some type of government edict. So I think that the good thing about it is that it is a better enterprise for players. The downside of it is I think some of the connective tissue that you get from staying at a place for a period of time can be lost. There are times when people need to transfer. I mean, fully believe that. It's not working out. Maybe they're not reaching their potential. Maybe the coach sees them in a different light. A lot of times I know the coach is right. Sometimes he's not. Sometimes the guy is what he thinks he is, and he needs to go prove it someplace else. So I do like the player movement, but I think a little more organization around it would be in order. I think the one transfer portal window is it is appropriate. And I think eventually we're going to need to get to a place where we collectively bargain a lot of these issues. And then from there, hopefully it will be more professionalized. And I know that rankles some people, but the truth of the matter is that it's already professional. So what you need to do is make it the best it can be for both the enterprise and for the players.